all I wanted was to know if they still loved me. But what I heard destroyed me. I climbed up to the attic without making a sound, my heart pounding and my legs trembling. It wasn't curiosity, it was desperation. I needed to feel that there was still a place for me in that house. I needed to believe that, despite my flaws, my presence still mattered. But when I hid up there and heard those words, something inside me shattered. They were laughing. Laughing at my confusion, my slowness, my existence. "She's a burden, always getting in the way," said my daughter-in-law's voice. "She doesn't even know where she is anymore," added my son, the same son I raised with so much love. And then came the blow that broke me. If she left, it would be a relief. My body froze. My stomach turned. I covered my mouth with my hand, as if I could contain the pain spilling out of me. I felt smaller than ever, invisible, a nuisance. The same voice that once called me mom now called me a problem. The arms that once clung to my neck now had no space left even to acknowledge me in the room. The attic ceiling felt like it was closing in on me, and in that moment, surrounded by dust and the crushing silence, I understood. I no longer lived there. I just took up space. But before I tell you what happened after that night, and how my life changed forever, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We bring you real, powerful, and transformative stories that show how pain can become the beginning of freedom. And tell me in the comments, have you ever stayed quiet just to hear a truth that broke something inside you? How did you deal with it? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. My name is Margaret, and I'm 76 years old. I never thought I'd feel like a stranger in my own son's home. I used to be so active. I worked as a seamstress for most of my life, kept my house spotless, and even after I retired, I was still full of energy. I was the kind of woman who cooked Sunday lunches for the whole neighborhood, helped the grandkids with their school projects, and never forgot a single birthday. My heart was always bigger than my body, and maybe that's why it hurt so much. After my husband passed away, my son Brian and his wife Lisa told me I shouldn't live alone anymore. They offered me a room in their house. "It'll be good for all of us," they said. At first, I believed them. I thought it would be a new, loving chapter of life, filled with connection, comfort, and family. But the truth was very different. I became a silent presence, invisible. At first it was just little things, small acts of forgetfulness. They wouldn't tell me what time dinner was. Sometimes they'd go to the grocery store and come back without my favorite yogurt, the one I've had every morning for years. I didn't say anything. I just made a note in my mind. I figured they were distracted. But with time, distraction became the norm. They started laughing at my memory when I forgot the name of a TV show or why I walked into a room. "She's getting senile," they'd say with a laugh. And I would laugh too, but only with my mouth, never with my heart. I stopped being included in decisions, even ones that directly affected my daily life. When they rearranged the living room, they took away my armchair and shoved it into the back storage room. When Lisa decided to replace the silverware, she threw out the set I got as a wedding gift. No warning, number, discussion. But what hurt the most was the silence. The way they'd glaze over when I tried to share a story. How the glow of a phone screen was more important than my voice. The unspoken message that my time had passed. And I just hadn't realized it yet. I started talking more to the plants on the porch than to the people under the same roof. One night, I walked into the living room and saw my granddaughter Emily laughing with her dad. They were watching a video on his phone and couldn't stop giggling. I came closer, hoping to join in. When I asked what it was, she said, "Nothing, Grandma, just young people stuff." And they turned away again. I stood there, like a ghost in my own house. Even the family dog, who used to jump into my lap every morning, was now banned from my room because he sheds too much. My bedroom at the end of the hallway became my safe place. A small, narrow space, but at least the memories inside still belonged to me. On the dresser, I laid out the old photos, me and my husband in the 70s, Brian's birth, birthday parties, family trips. Sometimes I'd sit there for hours, staring at those smiling faces frozen in time, trying to understand when I stopped being part of the living story and became just a dusty photograph. But everything changed the day I went up to the attic and heard what I wasn't supposed to. That day awakened something inside me, something I didn't even know was still there. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Share your story in the comments. Your words could be exactly what someone else needs to feel seen today. It started with whispers. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Lisa would mumble something under her breath whenever I entered the kitchen. Nothing loud, just fragments like she always takes forever or this is why I can't get anything done. Once, I heard her say to Brian, she slows down the whole house, and they laughed. I pretended not to hear. I always pretended not to hear. I started noticing the conversations that stopped as soon as I walked into the room. The silence would fall like a heavy blanket, smiles would vanish, phones would suddenly need checking, and eyes would scatter to different corners of the room. Something was off. The air didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like I was stepping into someone else's space. Uninvited, unwanted. I wasn't asked about dinner anymore. If I joined, fine. If I didn't, even better. Once, I came downstairs to find everyone already halfway through their meal. Lisa looked up and said, "Oh, we thought you were asleep." But I wasn't. I was in my room, with the door open. No one called me. No one knocked. Brian started treating me like a child. "Did you take your medicine, Mom?" he'd ask in a tone that wasn't concern. It was irritation. Lisa began labeling things in the fridge, and then said, "Just to help you remember where things go." But I wasn't forgetting. Not the way they made it sound. I was slower, sure, but not broken, not lost. I was still me. Then came the paperwork. I saw Lisa with a manila folder, whispering to Brian when they thought I was outside watering the plants. She shoved the folder into a drawer when I walked in, and Brian quickly changed the subject to the weather. I wasn't born yesterday. I knew something was wrong. The nail in the coffin came when I heard Emily, my granddaughter, joke with her mom in the hallway. "When is Grandma going to the old folks' hotel?" She giggled. Lisa didn't scold her. She laughed too. It took everything in me not to burst out of the room and scream. But I didn't. I stayed behind the door, holding on to the last piece of dignity I had left. They started talking to me like a burden, a chore, something to be managed. Brian once said, "We'll figure out something soon, Mom. You can't keep doing this." Doing what? Existing, breathing, taking up space. I wanted to ask, but my voice wouldn't come out. One day, I caught a glimpse of a brochure on the kitchen counter. A care facility, Sunrise Valley Home for Seniors. Beautiful gardens, smiling nurses, promises of peace and privacy. It wasn't mine. I didn't ask for it, but someone had brought it into the house. Have you ever felt like someone was slowly trying to erase you from your own life? Drop a comment below. Your story might inspire someone else to finally speak up. That afternoon, something felt different. I heard laughter. Not the kind that warms a room, but the kind that chills. It, cold, sharp. It came from the living room, but it wasn't joyful. It was mocking. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, listening. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just froze. And something told me, ... don't walk in. Don't interrupt. Just listen. Instead, I turned and walked up, past my room, past the attic door I hadn't opened in years. I grabbed the old pull cord and climbed up slowly, my joints aching. The attic was dusty and dim, but from the tiny grate in the floor, I could hear the voices, clearly as if I were right there with them. I knelt down, heart racing, hands trembling. "She's a burden," Lisa's voice rang out, loud and clear. "We can't keep living like this. She's draining us." My breath caught. "She doesn't even know what day it is half the time," Brian added. "I swear, she's slipping faster than we thought." Then Emily, my own granddaughter. Her voice cut through me like a blade. "Can I have her room when she's gone? It has better light for my selfies." Laughter. More laughter. They were laughing. About me. About my life. About my worth. I couldn't move. My knees dug into the wood. My hand covered my mouth. Every cell in my body screamed to go downstairs and demand answers, but I stayed hidden. I stayed frozen because deep down, I already knew the answer. They wanted me gone. Have you ever discovered something so painful that it changed the way you saw everyone around you? Share your moment below. Someone out there might need the courage you're about to give. I returned from the attic as silently as I had gone up. My legs were stiff, my chest heavy, and my soul ... bruised. I walked into the kitchen that evening and smiled. Yes, I smiled as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just heard my family plan a life without me in it. I made tea, sat at the table, nodded while Lisa talked about dinner, but I didn't taste a thing. My mouth moved. My heart didn't. The next morning, I started a notebook. I found it in the drawer beneath old greeting cards and yellowing recipes. I opened to the first page and wrote the date. Then I began. Every detail, every word I had heard, every glance, every sigh when I entered a room. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I needed to write. I needed to remember, not because I was forgetting ... but because they were pretending I already had. I walked through the house like a ghost. No one noticed when I didn't eat. No one asked if I needed anything. I existed on the edges, just like they wanted. I started sleeping in the attic. I told them the heater in my room was broken. Lisa didn't even pretend to care. She just said, "Well, that's unfortunate," and went back to scrolling her phone. There were nights I cried myself to sleep under dusty beams and insulation. I wrapped myself in 2 blankets and stared at the ceiling as if it held the answer to the question that haunted me most. How did I become invisible in a house I once built with love? I remembered birthdays where I baked cakes from scratch, wearing flour on my nose like a badge of honor. I remembered late nights with Brian as a boy, reading him stories when he was too afraid of thunderstorms to sleep. I remembered patching up Lisa's dress before her first job interview and sitting with Emily for hours, helping her memorize her spelling words. I was never absent. I was always there, always giving, always loving. Now I was an afterthought. They would laugh in the living room while I sat upstairs, scribbling the truth into the only place that still listened, my journal. Every stroke of the pen became a scream trapped in ink. And still, I smiled. Every morning, every meal, every small chore I was allowed to do, I heard them planning things, selling furniture, looking at nursing homes. I watched from a distance as my name became a problem, not a person, but I kept quiet. I wanted to see how far they'd go, and every night I climbed the attic ladder and whispered to the dark, "I'm still here. You haven't erased me." Have you ever had to hide your pain just to learn the truth? Tell me in the comments below. Your voice matters more than you think. It was a Sunday afternoon when everything shifted. I had left my journal tucked between 2 worn blankets in the attic. Foolish of me, perhaps, but my heart had grown tired of hiding everything, even my pain. That day, I returned from a short walk outside. The sun had finally broken through after a long, gray week. When I came back, I noticed something was off. The house was quiet, too quiet, no TV, no laughter, not even Lisa's usual humming in the kitchen. Then I saw him, Caleb, my youngest grandson, sitting on the edge of the attic stairs, holding my notebook in his lap. His eyes were swollen red. My heart stopped. "Grandma," he whispered when he saw me, "why didn't you tell me?" I froze. Every word I had poured into those pages, every memory, every wound, had reached him, and he had read it all. My first instinct was shame. I felt exposed, vulnerable, but he stood up, crossed the room in 2 steps, and hugged me so tightly it felt like he was holding me together. "You shouldn't be going through this alone," he said. "They don't see you, but I do." That night, Caleb didn't sleep in his room. He asked if he could stay in the attic with me. We sat there for hours, under the same dusty beams, talking like we hadn't in years. He asked questions. I gave him answers. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I existed. The next morning, he confronted his parents. I didn't go downstairs. I didn't have to. I could hear everything from above. His voice didn't shake. "You talk about Grandma like she's a burden," he said. "But you forgot she's the reason we have this house. She's the reason you had food growing up. She's the reason I know what kindness looks like." Lisa scoffed. Brian told him to lower his voice, but Caleb didn't. "I won't be part of this anymore," he said. "I won't let you erase her." I wept, silently, pressed against the attic wall. That evening, he brought his phone upstairs. "I made this for you," he said. He played a video. It was him, in his room, speaking to the camera. "My name is Caleb," he began, "and I want to talk about the strongest woman I know, my grandma." He went on to describe my life, my sacrifices, my stories, the way I tucked him in when he had nightmares, the way I never forgot a birthday, even when they did. "She taught me what love is," he said. "And now I'm going to protect her, like she always protected me." When the video ended, he looked at me. "You're not alone anymore, I promise." What would you do if the only person who truly saw you was the one you least expected? Tell me in the comments. Your story might inspire someone who feels invisible right now. The next day, I woke up before the sun. I didn't wait for anyone to stir. didn't linger in the quiet kitchen like I usually did. I got dressed, folded the old journal in my purse, and took one long, last look at the house that had once felt like mine. The silence was different that morning. Not heavy, certain. My feet knew the way. I called a cab, gave the driver an address I had memorized months ago. The law office downtown. I had made an appointment in secret. I had waited long enough. The office smelled of leather and ink. I handed over the journal and a folder of documents I had quietly gathered. I looked the attorney in the eyes and said, "I want to change everything." We spent over 2 hours there. Every clause, every detail, the house, the savings, even the jewelry locked away in my old chest, all of it was rewritten. All of it now had one name, Caleb. "Are you sure?" the attorney asked. "Absolutely," I replied. When I stepped out, the sun was already high. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel revenge. I felt release. I didn't return to that house. I had already packed the essentials. Caleb helped me move into a small but peaceful cottage on the edge of town. It had flowers on the porch and birds that sang in the morning. For the first time in years, I slept without fear of being called a burden. I woke up without the weight of proving my worth. It didn't take long for them to notice I was gone. Brian called, then Lisa. I let it ring. When they knocked on the cottage door days later, Caleb stood beside me and opened it. "She's not going back," he said. "And if you try to make her, you'll face me first." They tried lawyers, they tried guilt, but none of it worked. The papers were solid, the evidence overwhelming, and Caleb, he had my back at every turn. Each week he came with flowers, tulips, daisies, sunflowers, whatever was in season. We would sit together on the porch, and he'd read from the journal. One afternoon, he paused, choked up, and looked at me. "This line here," he said, "you wrote, 'He was my only home.'" I smiled, because it was true. In the end, what I left behind wasn't just a house or money. It was a lesson that love is proven in silence, in action, in the people who see you even when the world turns away. If someone ever stood by you when everyone else walked away, tell us in the comments. Sometimes, the people we least expect are the ones who save our story. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than screams, when distance becomes protection, and when standing alone is the only way to feel whole again. That was the beginning of my freedom. Not because I won anything, not because I punished anyone, but because I remembered who I was before they made me forget. Faith carried me on the days I didn't know how to stand. It whispered truth when every voice around me shouted lies. It reminded me that my value was never up for debate. I was not born to beg for space in my own story. I was not created to shrink, to apologize, to be tolerated. I was born to live with dignity. Each sunrise now feels like grace. Each flower Caleb brings is a symbol that love doesn't always come from where we expect. Sometimes, God uses the least likely hearts to remind us we are still worthy of being chosen. That's what Caleb did for me. He chose me, not out of obligation, but because his soul recognized mine. I no longer chase acceptance from those who only knew how to take. I don't wait for calls that never came. I've learned that silence is a full sentence, and walking away is not giving up. It's surviving. It's healing. It's returning to yourself. The little house where I live now is more than shelter. It's sacred ground. It's where I reclaim the parts of me they tried to erase. I cook what I want. I play the old songs I love. I write. I breathe. I smile without asking for permission. I exist fully, freely, without apology. What I lost in family, I gained in clarity. What I gave up in comfort, I gained in peace. And what I thought was the end turned out to be a quiet, gentle beginning. One I wrote with trembling hands, but a steady heart. Now, when I sit on the porch and hear Caleb laugh inside the house, I know I did something right. I protected the one soul that reached for mine when no one else would. I passed on not just my name or my belongings, but my strength, my story, my truth. And that's the real inheritance. To you who watches this now, if you've ever felt invisible, dismissed, or unwanted, I want you to know this. You matter. Your voice is not too quiet. Your pain is not too small. And your worth is not tied to who accepts or rejects you. Sometimes, God removes people not to punish you, but to protect the purpose He placed in you. Walk away if you need to. Begin again if you must. But never forget who you are. If this story touched something inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this message reach more hearts that might need it today. And don't miss our next story, where one daughter's betrayal leads to a revelation no one saw coming. You won't believe how it ends.